Have you ever found yourself sitting in a quiet room, staring out the window, wondering when the last time was that you did something just for you? Not for the kids, not for the grandkids, just for you? If that question hits a little too close to home, you're not alone. So many of us, especially as we get older, look back and realize just how much of our lives we've spent giving time, giving energy, giving up pieces of ourselves, all in the name of love, family, and responsibility. And don't get me wrong, being a parent is one of life's greatest gifts. It's a role filled with purpose, pride, and sometimes heartbreak. But here's the thing, no one really tells you. There comes a point in life, especially after 60, when giving too much can quietly turn into losing too much. And often it's not taken, it's offered, voluntarily, silently, over years and years. And then one day, you wake up and wonder where your own life went. That's why today, I want to have a heart-to-heart conversation with you. A real one. The kind we wish someone had with us a long time ago. This video isn't about blaming your kids, and it's definitely not about becoming selfish. It's about something much deeper. It's about protecting what's left of your most valuable resource. You. Your peace, your purpose, and your identity. There are some things in life, no matter how much you love your children, that you simply must never give up. Not for them, not for anyone. Let's talk about the first one. And I want you to really think about this. When was the last time you felt genuinely proud of how you were being treated? By others, and even by yourself? That quiet voice inside that says, I deserve better. Or this doesn't feel right. That's your self-respect trying to speak. But too often, we silence it. We trade it away. We let it slip in the name of harmony, of support, of doing the right thing. Maybe your grown child speaks to you with impatience, or takes you for granted. Maybe they expect you to babysit at the drop of a hat, or rely on you financially even though they're old enough to stand on their own. And you put up with it, not because you're weak, but because you're loving. Because you tell yourself, it's just a phase. Because you remember how small they once were, and how much they needed you. But here's the truth. Respect is not optional. Not at any age, and not in any relationship, including with your children. Respect is the foundation of all healthy love. When you give up your self-respect, you're silently telling others, it's okay to treat me this way. And with time, that message sticks. You stop standing up for yourself. You stop expecting to be treated with kindness. You start accepting less and thinking that less is normal. It's not. Let me ask you this. Would you want your best friend to be treated the way you're sometimes treated by your kids? If the answer is no, then why should it be okay for you? Now I know setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable. You might worry about causing tension or feel guilty for saying no. But boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about protecting your peace. They're a way of saying, I love you, but I also love myself. And any child who truly values you, as a parent, as a person, will learn to respect that line. It might take time. It might be awkward at first. But the result is worth it. Mutual respect. And a stronger relationship built on understanding, not obligation. Let's move on to something else that often gets quietly sacrificed in this stage of life, your health. And no, I don't just mean the big stuff, like surgery or medication. I'm talking about the little ways we let our well-being slide because we're too busy helping others. Skipping meals to rush out and pick up a grandchild. Losing sleep over worries that aren't even yours. Pushing through fatigue because someone needs a favor. And we tell ourselves it's fine. That we'll rest later. That we're used to it. But here's the hard truth. Your health isn't something you can put on the shelf and dust off when life slows down. Because let's be honest, Life rarely slows down, especially when you're a senior with adult children and grandchildren who always seem to need something. And yes, we want to be there for them. But how can you pour from an empty cup? When you constantly put yourself last, your body and your mind take the hit. And sometimes that hit becomes a fall, a blood pressure spike, a forgotten medication, a minor health issue that turns major because you were too focused on someone else to notice your own needs. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Think of your health like the foundation of a house. If it's strong, you can carry others. You can show up fully present and offer help from a place of strength. But if it's crumbling, everything above it starts to shake. Prioritizing your health isn't selfish, it's responsible. It's how you ensure that you can be there for the people you love, not just today, but in the years to come. So ask yourself, when was the last time you said no to something because your body needed rest? When was the last time you scheduled your own checkup, your own walk in the sunshine, your own moment of calm, before anyone else's needs? It's not too late to start. Even small changes, eating more mindfully, moving your body with care, taking 5 minutes to breathe deeply in the morning, they add up. And they send a message to your family too. My health matters. I matter. That kind of example? It's powerful. It teaches your children and grandchildren that caring for themselves is something to value, not to sacrifice. And let's be real, we didn't grow up in a world that always made this easy. We were taught to push through, to tough it out, to keep going no matter what. But now is the time to treat yourself like someone worth protecting. Because you are. There's something else I want to share with you. And it's something that's often dismissed as a luxury, when in truth, it's a necessity. Your dreams. Not the kind you had when you were 20. Not the dreams society expects. I mean the ones that still live inside you. The little hopes you've been quietly saving for later. The book you wanted to write. The city you wanted to visit. The hobby you used to love before life got too busy. The new thing you want to try just because it makes you feel alive. We give up our dreams so easily when we become parents. It's almost automatic. We shift focus. We reprioritize. We invest everything in our children's future. And that's beautiful. But the problem comes when later never arrives. When later turns into someday. And someday turns into never. But here's what I've learned, and what I want you to hear loud and clear. Your dreams still matter. At 60, 70, 80, they still matter. You're not too old to chase something that lights you up inside. You're not being unrealistic or selfish for wanting more than just survival. You are allowed to grow, to change, to become, still. And sometimes you'll have to fight for it. You may have children who think you should just take it easy or stay close to home. You might hear things like, "Why would you want to do that now?" But remember this, no one else is living your life. And no one else gets to tell you how full it can be. Maybe your dream isn't big or flashy. Maybe it's as simple as taking an art class at the community center, growing your own vegetables, learning a new instrument, or spending time writing down your life stories for your grandchildren to someday read. These aren't trivial things. They're sacred. They're the expression of your spirit, the part of you that's still curious, still creative, still alive. So don't let anyone, not your kids, not society, not even that voice of doubt in your own head, tell you it's too late. Because it's not. As long as you're breathing, your life is still unfolding. You don't need permission to make the next chapter yours. There's a deeper reason to protect your dreams, too. Because when you do, you teach your children something priceless. You show them what it looks like to keep growing, to keep becoming, to never give up on what matters to your soul. And someday, when they hit a point in their lives where they feel stuck or lost, They might just remember the example you set. That you chose to keep moving forward, to keep reaching, no matter your age. That's a legacy far greater than anything money or property can provide. And speaking of legacy, that brings us to something else that too often gets sacrificed in the name of peace, or compromise, or simply trying to avoid conflict. Your values. Now, this one can be tricky, because we all want our children to be happy. We want to support them. We want to help them make their own choices. But sometimes their choices, or the things they ask of us, go against the core of who we are. And when that happens, it's easy to feel torn. Do you stay quiet to keep the peace? Do you go along just to avoid being labeled difficult, judgmental, or old-fashioned? But here's the thing. Your values are not up for debate. They are the compass that has guided you through decades of life. They've helped you make hard decisions, raise your family, endure loss, celebrate wins, and become the person you are today. Giving those up, even just a little, can quietly erode your sense of self. And that kind of erosion doesn't happen all at once. It's slow. It creeps in through small concessions. A yes when your gut said no. A silence when you wanted to speak up. An agreement you didn't truly believe in. Before you know it, you're living a life that doesn't feel quite like your own anymore. You are not wrong for believing what you believe. You're not outdated. You're not rigid. You are grounded. And that is something to be proud of. Your values are your strength. They are what gave your family its foundation. And while it's okay for your children to make their own choices, that doesn't mean you have to bend who you are to support them in ways that feel wrong. It's possible to love your kids deeply and still say, "This doesn't sit right with me." It's possible to support them as people without supporting every decision they make. That's not judgment. That's honesty. That's integrity. And your integrity is something you should never hand over, not even for the people you love most. You've spent a lifetime building the person you are. Your principles, your faith, your sense of right and wrong, they weren't just given to you. You earned them through experience, through trials, through moments when no one else saw the weight you were carrying. So don't throw that away just to make someone else more comfortable, especially when that someone already has the strength and freedom to make their own path. And here's another truth we don't say out loud enough. When you speak your truth with love, even if it causes tension at first, it often leads to deeper understanding in the long run. You're not hurting your relationship by being honest. You're strengthening it. Because real love isn't based on silence or blind agreement. It's based on mutual respect and the ability to say, "I hear you, and here's where I stand." I know it's not always easy, especially if your children expect you to go along with everything they do or believe, especially if you fear being cut off or misunderstood. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stand firm, not with anger, not with shame, but with quiet strength, with dignity. That brings me to something else we need to talk about. It's subtle, and sometimes it's the hardest to spot until it's almost gone. Your happiness. Now I'm not talking about temporary pleasures or big exciting moments. I'm talking about the steady, quiet contentment that comes from feeling like your life is still yours. That feeling of waking up in the morning and knowing that even if your day is simple, it still holds things that bring you joy. How often do you put your happiness on the back burner, telling yourself, "I'll relax once the kids are settled," or "I'll plan something for myself after I help them with this one last thing." And that one last thing becomes 5, then 10, and before you know it, a year has passed, and you've barely done anything that truly lights you up. You start to believe that this stage of life isn't supposed to be happy, that it's just about supporting others, staying out of the way, or slowly fading into the background. But that's a lie. Your happiness is still important. It still matters. You still matter. You're not here to simply exist so that others can live. You're here to live, too. To enjoy your morning cup of coffee. To feel the warmth of sunlight on your face. To laugh. To dance if you want to. To call a friend just to talk. To go to the park. To wear your favorite color. To rediscover music that makes you feel like yourself again. Happiness doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be loud, but it does have to be yours. And if someone in your life, even a beloved child, makes you feel guilty for seeking that joy, that peace, that independence, well, that says more about them than it does about you. Because no one who truly loves you would want you to lose your spark just to make their life easier. You've earned the right to enjoy this chapter. You've carried others for decades. You've made the sacrifices. You've done the hard work. Now it's okay to claim the space you need to be happy again. It's more than okay. It's necessary. Because when your happiness fades, so does your energy, your light, your enthusiasm for life. And maybe you've noticed it. You smile less. You feel more tired. You don't look forward to the days like you used to. That isn't just part of getting older. That's what happens when your life starts revolving entirely around others, and not enough around you. So let me ask you gently, what brings you joy? Not what your children think should bring you joy. Not what makes life easier for them. But what truly fills your soul, in the quiet, honest way that makes you feel alive. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's going to church. Maybe it's sitting at the lake with a journal. Maybe it's walking with a friend or reading a book with a cup of tea. Maybe it's singing, even if it's just in the kitchen while cooking dinner. Happiness in this season of life doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be intentional. You get to choose it. And when you do, something beautiful happens. The people around you start seeing you not just as mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, but as a person. A full, vibrant, whole person who still has things to enjoy, to explore, to become. And here's the most powerful truth of all. When you protect your happiness, your children learn how to protect theirs. When they see you setting boundaries, caring for your health, honoring your dreams, and living by your values, even if it's hard sometimes, they learn how to do the same. You're not just giving them freedom by always saying yes. You're giving them a blueprint for self-respect, self-care, and a full life. I want to pause for a moment and speak from the heart. This message is not about pushing your kids away. It's not about turning cold or hard. It's about making room for mutual respect. Room for the kind of love that isn't based on guilt or silent sacrifices, but on understanding and dignity. We all want to feel needed. And when our children grow up, it can be painful to feel that shift, from center of their universe to someone they call when they remember. And in that quiet space, we often overgive. We say yes when we're exhausted. We agree to things we shouldn't, not because we want to, but because we're afraid. Afraid that if we stop giving, we'll stop mattering. But here's what I need you to hear. Your worth was never tied to how much you sacrifice. You matter simply because you exist. You matter because you have lived and learned and loved. You matter because you still have breath in your lungs and wisdom in your soul. That doesn't go away just because your children don't need you the way they once did. In fact, this new season of life, it can be one of the richest yet. Not because of how much you do for others, but because of how much you rediscover within yourself. So maybe today is the day you begin that rediscovery. Maybe today you take a walk not because someone asked you to, but because you wanted to move. Maybe today you say no to something that drains you, and yes to something that feeds your spirit. Maybe today you dust off an old hobby or call a friend, or simply sit in silence and ask yourself, what do I want? And if the answer doesn't come right away, that's okay. Sometimes after years of giving, it takes time to remember what you wanted in the first place. Be patient with yourself. You're not behind. You're right on time. Remember, this isn't about building walls or withdrawing from your family. It's about setting your foundation, about creating a life where you can show up for them and for yourself, fully, honestly, and without resentment. Because when you protect your self-respect, your health, your dreams, your values, and your happiness, you don't become less of a parent. You become a stronger one, a more peaceful one, a whole one. And don't be surprised if your children, once they adjust, begin to admire this version of you even more. The version who says, "I love you, and I also love me." The version who no longer overextends, overcompensates, or over-sacrifices. The version who walks with calm confidence and no longer needs to explain or defend their choices. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to live a life that feels good to you, even now, especially now. So if you're watching this and feeling a little conflicted, maybe even guilty, I want you to take a deep breath and hear this. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you're abandoning anyone. It means you're choosing to stay rooted so you don't get pulled apart. It means you're choosing to live with purpose instead of just enduring. It means you're finally ready to carry yourself with the same care, love, and support you've given others all your life. You've spent decades putting others first. Now is the time to take your turn. And if you need permission, even though you never really needed it, let me be the one to give it to you. You can protect your peace. You can change your mind. You can reclaim the parts of you that were put on hold for far too long. You can live fully, deeply, and joyfully without asking for anyone's approval. You deserve it. Not because of what you've done or who you've cared for, but because you're you. That is reason enough. So take a step forward today. A small one. A quiet one. But a true one. And if this message has stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your worth, or sparked a thought, or made you feel less alone, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment below and share your experience. Whether it's a boundary you've set, a dream you've reclaimed, or simply a moment of clarity, your story might be the very thing that helps someone else find their strength. And if this message resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to Strong Elderly Life, where we believe that every chapter of life deserves to be lived with intention, joy, and courage. This community is for you, and we're just getting started. Here's to you, to your growth, your peace, your joy, and your beautiful, unshakable sense of self. Here's to living your best life at any age.